How do we move on from disappointment, whether that disappointment is large or small? Welcome back. I'm Gila Ross, host of the Power Up podcast, where we talk about real life stuff and tease apart what's true and what's not. And in this series, Torah for Today, we take a short idea from the Torah portion of the week and use it to impact and upgrade our everyday life. How do we move on after disappointment? Sometimes we face small disappointments. Sometimes those disappointments are big and heartbreaking. How do we have the courage to move on? The heartbreaking story of Miriam can teach us something. Miriam unfortunately lost her husband, and later she lost 2 children in the Israeli army. When she heard the devastating news about her son, and again the devastating news about her second son, she didn't know how she was going to get up and face the day. She tells us that she had this realization that it was up to her to focus and to see what remained, and that's what gave her the strength to go on. We see this from Aaron. Aaron suffered the devastating tragedy of the death of his 2 sons. And the Torah tells us that afterwards, after the death of Aaron's sons, God talks to him and God gives him instructions. And God is basically telling Aaron, yes, you have suffered this devastating tragedy. Now you have to focus on what is remaining. Focus on what you still have. The quality of our life is usually affected by the choices that we make. And when a person suffers disappointment, the choice they have then is to focus on what they still have. Focus on what remains. We see this in the prayers. We say that God is a king who brings death, then life, and makes salvation sprout. There's a cycle. Sometimes it's as devastating as a loss, a death, but then comes life, and then God brings salvation. And the same is true with our disappointment. When we have the disappointment, whether it's the rejection, whether it's a job that doesn't come through, whether it's a project that fails or a relationship that fails, we then have the choice to focus on what remains and to realize that there's a cycle, that after difficulty, it gets better. And then God brings salvation. To acknowledge that while the disappointment is hard, there's a future. And we have a choice to look towards and to focus on that future. Thank you for taking the time to listen. To schedule a complimentary discovery call with Gila, please email gilaross@gmail.com. You can also learn more from Gila on Instagram. It's Gila Ross. And please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss out. Have a wonderful day.